this video, I'm going to try and attempt to cover some of the great advancements for digital dentists on the Medit Link software and the Medit Scan program that was launched in late 2020. It'll take quite a lot of days to document all the neat features and all the powerful tools you have at your disposal, and it's definitely geared towards people who are exposed to digital dentistry, have had some experience, and are looking to get into scanning. And we'll start with the very simple case box where I've created a chart. Now this is the patient's name up here. I just want to kind of orient you or get you familiar with the workflow that's in the program. So at the very top here, we've got the scan window, then we've got the CAD window, and then we've got the file viewer window. When all the cases are processed, they're listed here after you're finished scanning. So let's go back to the scan button here. And most advanced users are impatient like me, and they'll right away just go straight to scan. So this is a great feature for advanced users who are not patient enough to sit there and fill out forms and select materials and choose a tooth number. They just want to register the patient's name, click quick scan, start imaging, and then while it's processing, then they'll come back and fill out the form for the lab, or if they're going to be doing the case themselves and designing it in-house, they would start proceeding with the CAD tab. So we'll give you a broad overview of how this works. In this tab, if you intend to just send your cases to the lab, you would stay in the scan tab, and you could choose pre-op models. So whatever you fill out in the prescription form dictates what you're going to be doing with the scan once you launch the camera. So here we can tell the scanner that we're going to need a pre-op scan of the upper jaw. We'll leave the lower jaw alone, and then we'll click on the face scan. In the face scan, you can bring in a bunch of different models into the equation and merge 3D scans, any STL file you want, basically, to models that you've scanned. Then we've got the teeth and the odontogram that you can toggle between the tooth form and arch form, and then you select the tooth number. Here we have the US numbering system. You could easily change it to the international numbering system if you want. And we can click on the upper right molar. Once I've selected that, I have to choose what I'll be doing for this particular case. So let's say we're doing a crown. It's very simple, not intimidating. You can select what type of crown it is. Are you doing a PFM? Are you doing an Emax restoration? What is the shade? You select that, and you can hit save and proceed to scan. And once you start scanning, you'll have the pre-op window you can scan in. You have the prep arch, you'll have the bite, you'll have multiple catalog boxes that you can scan into. Alternatively, if you're doing some appliances, we can click on the arch. Let's clear all the settings. And we have quite a few parameters or functionality that's associated with a full arch scan. You can make a snoring appliance, a sports guard. You can duplicate dentures in this mode. You can fabricate indirect bonding trays. So this is full arch, orthodontic, or appliance type of restorations or prosthetics you would create, or even diagnostic models that you would send off to the lab. Now, alternatively, instead of using the scan mode, you could leave this blank and not fill anything out. And if you're already doing restorations chairside, if you're already printing, if you're already milling, you will likely just skip the step and go to the CAD tab, or just launch it and do your imaging and then function from the CAD restoration tab. Now there's a lot of detail here that I'm going to just kind of give you a broad overview. If you've left this blank, none of the information from here carries over. But if you, let's say you do label this as tooth number 3, the upper right, first molar, and you do say it's an anatomic Emax restoration, shade A1, once I proceed to the CAD functionality, that information transfers over. Whereas if I had left it blank, there'd be a whole new prescription form that I would have to fill out. So you can, to keep it simple at this point, click on the restoration, and add details of how you're going to be designing this restoration and how you're going to be milling it. Are you milling it with a 5-axis machine or a 4-axis milling machine? What is the material? It's lithium disilicate. Is it implant based? If you're using some scan bodies, you would choose this selection here, and then you have some advanced, again, more functionality in the parameters for the minimum thickness in the proposals, the gap of the cement, and the width of the cement gap, and then you have even more advanced parameters that are very specific to how a restoration is going to be manufactured. So you can select the scan function, you can select the CAD function, and once you've done the prescription, you can go ahead and click on scan, or you could have just quick scanned and then come back to this and fill it afterwards. So the software is very, very flexible in that sense, and for power users, advanced users, or people who are already exposed to digital dentistry, it really speeds up quite a lot when you can quickly image and quickly get to the stages you need to either send off the case to the lab or design it yourself for in-office manufacturing. Separate from that, a few things I want to show you that are great new features that have really propelled this program, this software, to the forefront of all the different imaging programs we have available to us. And that's namely how to attach CAD programs to this. So in the settings section here, as a quick overview, you can connect different type of CAD programs. You can link them so they're connected to the Medit software, and you can launch the CAD program right after you image. And what's great is all your models are appropriately imported and articulated to each other, and you're off to the races with your design. You can mark your margins in the Medit software and the native imaging software, or you can mark it in the CAD software. It doesn't care. And then a great new enhancement was this export option. That is, again, for advanced users, particularly those who use advanced CAD software, where you have the capability to how you export it, what format you have it in, what format are your images going to be in, because you can't take intraoral scans. And then you have this extremely important naming convention, this naming rule. And for power users and advanced users, as you know, with nomenclature, it's extremely important that you properly label everything, and the CAD software, if you're off by one character and you haven't named it appropriately, then it can create all kinds of havoc for the design and the manufacturing. So you get to set the naming rule here. You get to choose what type of mesh format you export it, and then you can have all the files exported to the appropriate folder. And because of this naming convention, you can have other types of devices, maybe a tabletop scanner, or a photogrammetry scanner, or a face scanner, whatever they are. They can all place their data into the same folder, in the same patient case. And once you launch the CAD program, it can draw, for instance, the upper jaw from maybe your tabletop scanner. It can draw the face scan from a handheld device that does face scanning for you. It can preload things, so it really ramps up and speeds up the design of software and facilitates the CAD program. And you have multiple different CAD software that you can link to the imaging platform and the Medit scan. So quite a lot of options there, great flexibility and functionality, and this is may look very simple to you, but it has a significant impact on the way you approach a case and how you sync your data across multiple software and platforms so that you can quickly get to the end result and fabricate a restoration. Very, very flexible, and you'll see some case examples at the end of this video that shows you how we utilize that. So you set up the CAD program, which is tied to this. As soon as we're finished with the imaging, you can click on the CAD tab, and then the design starts right away. Another great feature, particularly for large offices, is the dashboard. And in the dashboard, this is now artificial data that you're going to see pop up here. But we have quite a lot of information. What are the cases that have been sent to the lab? What's been completed? What has been shipped? What's on its way? What kind of restorations you've done? What kind of cases you're submitting to the lab. You can even pay for cases ahead of time if you have a proper agreement set up with the lab. Some advanced functionality we can touch on later. But there's a lot of information in the dashboard that lets you know what you're doing. One thing you do want to draw your attention to is this cloud storage, and this has been one of the probably biggest impacts from my own practice was the cloud storage that I have, and I'll explain that in more detail when we get back to cases where I can attach a zip file, I can attach DICOMs, I can attach STLs, I can attach photos to that patient chart, and they're saved there, and then they're synced across the cloud, so I can go to any other computer, log in as the same username and password, and have access to everything. Whereas I'd spent a lot of time searching for cases on the server, on a local PC, not knowing where I've saved something and where I could find it. So I'm moving a lot of my data onto the cloud so that I can access it wherever I log into, and it's made my life a lot easier to make sure all that data is stored in the right place. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. So once we've scanned everything, everything's saved, it'll be listed here, but I also have the option to click on an attachment, and once I click on that, I can also grab any PDF, STL, zip file, DICOMs, whatever it may be, and have it linked to this, and all that's stored in the cloud. So it gives me quite a lot of flexibility to be able to store all the data that I need for particular cases for the patients. In the order box, we'll have the cases that are off to the lab, and then we have the app box here, where we have new features, new programs that Medit launches at different times throughout the process. They're called apps that you can install. Some new ones that are coming out are Smile Designs and Medit Compare features, and there'll be videos that will demonstrate that as well. So let's go ahead and go back to the case box and show you the functionality of. Now, parlaying off the introduction to the layout of the Medit software, now we have launched the scan program called Medit Scan for Clinics, and this is the introductory page where there are some shortcuts, and there's some great features to help you get very comfortable with how to scan. So we'll go ahead and close that, and then there's some good tips. This is true with every scanner, and it's geared towards new users. You want to make sure that there's no external light sources. You want to make sure the mirror is clean and free of stains. All those are all very important because the camera will mistake a water spot or stains on a mirror as data that it needs to capture. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the upper jaw. And in the upper jaw scan, we have a few features I want you to get accustomed to or appreciate. There's no camera connected to this program, so some of the things are turned off. But I just wanted you to see a great overview of all the different features that we have. So the first thing I'm going to draw your attention to is this toggle bar down here that I don't think any other camera in the market has this. This is a phenomenal feature. With this setting here, I can set it to anywhere from 12 to 21 millimeters. And what I basically tell the camera is ignore everything beyond 12, 12 and a half, 13 millimeters from the tip of the camera. This comes in very handy when you're trying to capture an open bite for an oral appliance, and you don't want the camera to see the tongue or the oropharynx that's moving. You don't want it to see saliva. So it's good at hiding things, and it's great for new users who could get distracted or have the camera distracted with the lip, the tongue, and all these other things that move. Conversely, if you're an expert user, you're an advanced user, you know exactly how to manage the tongue and the lip and everything else that may get in the way. And with intraoral scanning, it's very simple. You can scan a full arch in seconds if you control everything that intraoral scanners don't like, which is namely moving parts, dark areas, the oropharynx, liquids, blood, saliva, all those things. You manage that. You can turn this to the full throttle and have the camera pick up as much information, but if you're inexperienced and you're new, you may inadvertently pick up the tongue and the lip, which slows you down dramatically as a user. It gets frustrating. So this tool is very powerful, and you can automatically adjust it to multiple settings. We could spend days talking about how to utilize this. It's a very popular function amongst advanced users. You can also use the very high setting for deep margins if you want to. And for new users, I mentioned you can keep it at low setting so that you don't get distracted by the tongue and the lip, which is the constant issue with taking digital impressions. In fact, in conjunction with that, we have a feature here. We'll turn this on. What this does is it's a color filter. This is a phenomenal new feature that the Medit scanner has, and every scanner has a projector that shines light onto structure that bounces back, and it's keep it simple, imaged by two cameras that are offset by a specific angle, and the software from there lets you build a 3D model from the multiple images that it takes per second, 15, 20, 30, basically a live video scan. So there are two color cameras that the Medit has, and what's great about the smart color filtering is we can tell the camera which colors to ignore. So very common thing that I do now is I use blue gloves, and I tell it to ignore the blue color altogether. So now I can crank up this feature here, and I can control the tongue and the lip by telling the scanner to avoid particular colors. And what you want to do is you want to use the colors that are in the spectrum of the green, blue, indigo, and violet color range, as opposed to red, orange, yellow, that are basically things you'd find in tooth structure and gum tissue. So this is a phenomenal filter, very popular. It's caught on quite a lot for users, and it gives us a lot of advantages. Next to this filter, based on how good your graphics card is, basically what you're trying to do when you're imaging is you're trying to balance the amount of information that's coming in with good data, and you want to avoid picking up data that you don't need. So the tongue that's moving, you don't need for an intraoral scan, so you can use a variety of things like a rubber dam or an isolite or your fingers, and use these filters to weed out things that you don't want. So as an advanced user, I'll have color filters on, I'll have this cranked up, and I'll have this again set to full throttle because I don't want to slow things down. I want to pick up as much data as possible, and I'd rather manage the excess data that's getting in the way of what I'm trying to accomplish. New users would be just the opposite. They want to have a low filter setting. They want to pick up as little bit of data as possible because they're not experienced enough yet to control all the moving parts that may hamper you. So a lot of great features. You'll see clinical examples of that throughout this presentation. From there, we'll move on to the new metal scan mode. You'll see some features of that. Again, what happens is the light hits that surface, it bounces back, and if it's highly reflective, it basically floods the camera. They can't pick up it's like a light shining off a mirror right back onto the cameras, and it makes it harder to read highly reflective surfaces like gold and metal and a PFM crown or Emax and zirconia. So when you turn this filter on, there's some advanced technology that helps you image metal much more readily and easily. Personally, I just prefer to change my angle, have the light hit that surface and bounce another different direction, and then from there the camera can pick up the surface topography of what you're trying to scan. We also have this incredible new feature here which lets you import scan data. So when I click on this, I'll be able to bring in data, 3D models from previous cases or other cases, and import it into this catalog box. So let's click on that. So we have this fake person, and we're going to bring in this person's upper jaw. We'll click on that. We'll click on confirm. So now it's bringing in a 3D data. Now this could be a wax up that your lab has done. This could be a variety of different types of 3D data that you just brought into the catalog box. And this patient happens to be in brackets for orthodontic care, and there's a base model here, and I just brought this 3D scan in. Now, if you're a new user, you may not understand this, but when we're scanning someone, we're capturing raw video footage, and then that gets processed into a 3D model like you see here. An incredible new feature we have with the Medit scan is that we can bring in a 3D model. It could be manufactured by the lab. We can turn on the camera and then continue building on this model. I don't know of another camera system that has this. It's an incredible feature to be able to bring in 3D models and be able to build on that, and we simply just don't need to keep raw files. Most scanners on the market will image with the raw files, and then when you're processing, they'll trash the raw files because they take up a lot of space. A full arch like this is probably a gig of data, so it would trash that, and then it would leave the 3D model behind. So to be able to bring in a 3D model, turn on your scanner, have it recognize the surface or whatever you're scanning, and then continue building a model to that. That is a feature we've never had in digital dentistry before, and you'll see some examples of that, which is phenomenal. Next thing I'm going to show you is this button down here. When I click on this, we have the opportunity to bring in pre-formatted STL files or 3D models of implant superstructures. Now, advanced users will actually take advantage of this and bring in things beyond anything that deals with implants. Like you can bring in an STL of a CT scan, you can bring in pre-ops, but it's another way to incorporate other STLs. Here I just have a simple 6-unit multi-unit abutment model from a photogrammetry program that we've brought in that you would click on, and now when you scan, you can try and merge these things live. So some really advanced functionality that we have access to, where you can add data, whether it's you're bringing in old models or you're trying to take advantage of the artificial intelligent implant superstructure identification system of the Medit software. That really opens up the floodgates and lets you manage very large, complex prosthetic cases through this process. So this is just a quick overview, just so you can appreciate what is available in the software. We'll trash that. And what you simply can do is you can take the upper jaw scan, you can take the lower jaw scan, and then you can take the bite scan. We'll demonstrate all these in subsequent videos. Now you'll notice there's only 3 models here. Let's close that and exit without saving. And now let's go ahead and add the pre-op, and let's add the face scan like we had before. Now let's click on scan. Again, I don't have a camera connected to this, so I'm going to get an error that he can't find the scanner. No big deal. Just wanted to show you in a demonstration how the prescription form now will give you more options here. So not only do we have the opportunity to take a pre-op scan, we also have the opportunity to take a face scan where you can bring in 3D data. And for an advanced user, this is just an incredible option. We can bring in face scan, we can bring in STLs, not DICOMs, but STLs from a CT scan. And on top of that, we can bring in other models like I demonstrated before. So this is just incredibly advanced features where you can have multiple models for implant cases, where you have gingiva scans, and you've got scan body scan, multi-unit abutment scan, you've got pre-ops, you've got bite, you've got quite a few different layers of information that you can just keep building on, including adding the patient's face scan. So very, very advanced functionality and of a great use. And you can, as a preview here, it shows you how you can have an intraoral scan, you can have a CT scan, and you can have a strategy where you scan the lips and the nose of the patient, and then that'll merge your jaw scan with the 3D face scan that you've imported. So great advanced functionality. Let's go back to the pre-op scan here. So whatever you scan in the pre-op scan will be copied over to the jaw scan, and we'll show you how to use this where you can copy a pre-existing tooth or a crown that you love the shape, or you have a denture that retrofits to that. You can scan the pre-op of that, scan the prep, and the lab or yourself you can manufacture a copy of that pre-op condition and render a restoration that perfectly replicates what was there before. So we've got the upper jaw, pre-op, lower upper jaw, where the prep goes usually, and then we have the lower jaw scan and then the bite, and you'll see more demonstrations of all of these. And this was just barely introducing you to some of the functionality available to you in the new scan, and how it impacts the clinical decisions you make, and how it speeds things along and lets you capture information very quickly and readily so you can process a case. Alright, so let's put some of these features into use here. Let's go to the smart color filtering feature. It's probably the most exciting part of this program. Here I'm turning on the filter to image my gloves, and I will confirm that color, and I just told the scanner to ignore everything that's blue. So you can watch I'm scanning very slowly for a new user. This is the lower arch, this is the upper arch, and I'm displacing the cheek, displacing anything that may get in the way, and I'm slowly scanning. You can see the filter setting I was talking about earlier, and I'm taking my time to demonstrate the power of this blue filter. So the combination of the low focal or the short focal distance from the tip of the camera, but more importantly the blue color of my gloves, without any suction, without any assist, without any air blowing on top of the teeth, although the camera itself does project air onto the surface. It keeps the mirror from fogging. I can fill in and pick up all this data. So here you can see how I'm using my finger to block the tongue while I'm imaging the retromolar pad and getting around the distal of that second molar and the lower arch. This is the hardest area to scan for a new user, and between all the different settings that I've discussed, it makes it very easy for a new user to capture all that, or an advanced user to speed along and use those filters to his or her benefit to capture the arch, particularly when they're imaging alone. Here's another example. I use my blue gloves to block out the floor of the mouth and the tongue so that the camera doesn't get confused or doesn't have to worry about imaging moving parts, and I can now readily pick up the lower incisal teeth. So it makes it super easy to capture that. Then we'll have the patient bite down, and we can readily merge the upper jaw with the lower jaw. And now we can proceed with the case. Here we're actually planning for an implant, so we're going to design a virtual wax-up for the second molar. Now we'll demonstrate how you can take a full arch scan in just a minute's time by utilizing all those things to your advantage. So I am using the filter setting, and I'm using the blue color exclusion filter with my finger. You can see how the camera is trailing my finger at all times. So this way I'm blocking the lip, I'm blocking anything that can get in the way of slowing me down, and it's a very rapid, very quick scan. So from the first molar on forward to the canine, that's a super easy area to scan for a new user. But when you get to that second molar in the upper jaw, that right there is the most difficult part to scan. So let's see how we manage that. I'm just going to use my finger. I'm going to displace the cheek, and now that the camera can see that there's no tissue there and my finger took care of that, it knows that's no longer part of the equation, and it automatically crops it out. So very important that you understand that. I used my finger, the blue glove, and I imaged enough to for the software to recognize that that second molar, that extra cheek tissue that I picked up inadvertently, was not part of the equation. I do the same thing on the lower. We've got this edentulous area, and I'm controlling the lip movement, the tongue movement. All of that can be distraction. And I'm using the filters in my fingers to guide this area. So once again, we'll position the camera in such a manner so that we want to pick up immobile tissue. Anything that's moving and coming in and out of the line of sight of the camera can slow you down, can distract the scanner, can distract the software. So just by using my finger and the blue gloves, I'm able to pick up the lower arch in no time without the help of an assistant, suction or air or any retraction. So the 2 second molars on this side are zirconia restorations that were previously placed, and those are more reflective than natural tooth structure, and you saw how readily I was able to image that by displacing the tongue and the lips, again by using the smart color feature. So there's a whole lower arch scan. You can look in the upper right quadrant or upper right corner, and you can see how long it took to scan that. It was just about a minute's worth of time without any assistant or suction or air helping me in the process. I'll have the patient bite down, and we'll take the bite to merge the upper jaw to the lower jaw. And for more complicated cases, I'd like to grab a lot more data for the bite so that I can make sure I've articulated them correctly. Again, here you'll notice how anything that's purple in the lower right quadrant, the live view, is what I've told the software to ignore with my focal length filter or gauge. So that's exactly how I've positioned it so I can block out the tongue. In this video, we're going to show how you scan metal objects that are highly reflective with a new software that's coming out from Medit, due to be released in October of 2020. Has some really advanced features, but before we show that, this is the older version of the software, the current live version, and this is how we recommend you scan metal. You get a purchase point on the soft tissue. You establish what we call the home base. You get some good, reliable data. And then I switch to the reliability map, which helps the new user guide their way across scanning an arch, whether it's edentulous or tooth-borne. And the rate at which I'm advancing the camera is dependent on how quickly the red data turns green. So that sets the pace, that sets the tone. And then if you look in the lower right quadrant, we have a live window, and anything that's purple in that live window and there's a silhouette of it is an area the camera or the software cannot see. So just by angling the camera and hitting it from a different direction, you channel the light to reflect off of that in a different direction so the cameras can pick up the images that it are bouncing back off that object. So here I'm grabbing some more of the palette and I'm advancing it very specifically. There's a pattern I'm following, and I'm rolling to the buccal and the lingual. This is a great example of how highly reflective surfaces or translucent surfaces like enamel on a young individual that's not warrant can derail most intraoral scanners if you don't know what you're doing, if you haven't been trained well on it. So the pace at which I'm going with is very deliberate. I'm following the recommended speed, or I'm following the guidelines set by the speed of the software turning the red areas into green. So this has been about 90 seconds, so I'm picking this up, and I want to make sure I stay on track and don't introduce double images and any errors that may alter the accuracy of the model. And then I go back to previous areas and I angle the camera to pick up more data. So I'm routinely going back to a reference frame or a purchase point to remind the software where it is so that it can see previous data and build upon that and eliminate any errors or anything discrepancies between the current live stage and where I've had a pass through already. So once I complete this and I see areas where there are holes, I'll go back over it with the scanner and try and fill them in. And again, this is a bar for an overdenture. It's super reflective, so it does take a bit of time to image that. You could powder it if you wanted to. It just gets messy. So all you got to do is just change your angulation. So this is the current software that is live with the Medit i500 intraoral scanner. Now, with the new software, I image the same case. There's a specific feature for scanning metal that you activate, and you'll see how much faster this is. But it's important that you understand the way I'm imaging, the focal length I have it set, and what I'm doing and what dictates the pace I image with. So it's about 3 minutes so far into this, and you can keep angling it to fill in every area you want that has deficient data if you wanted to for whatever particular reason. So now we'll process this and we'll try it out with the beta software. And here's the soft tissue model when you come out of the reliability map. And there's the feature that is meant for highly reflective metal scanning. And this video is not forwarded at all. You can see the time it takes up on this top right corner. That was 10 seconds to go from one side of the arch to the other. But again, if you're inexperienced, don't be misled. There's a very specific way I'm scanning this. There's a lot of fundamentals you need to appreciate in intraoral scanning to know how to stay on track when you're picking up this data. So in 30 seconds, I'm back to where I started. Now I'll start filling in any holes I may have in the bar. I'll start angling it to different directions or different angles so that I can have the light bounce at a different direction and not flood the cameras that are inside the unit. So there's a projector that's shooting light onto an object that bounces back, and 2 cameras inside the Medit scanner set at a different angle, pick up this data and form a 3D model. So that was the 1 minute mark. That was not sped up at all, and we have captured the full arch with the bar, and we can just touch up some areas where there's missing data. This segment here will show you how we add additional information by importing a scan data. So we'll bring in a model, we'll load it up. Here's a model that's loaded, and I'm going to turn on the scanner. It's a very simple concept, extremely powerful. Don't know if any other intraoral scanner has this, but I turn on the device, and as soon as it recognizes parts of that model, it'll now start to fill in whatever is missing, and I can expand on that. This will come in extremely handy for some advanced cases. Just want to demonstrate how powerful that is. In this video, we're going to showcase one of the greatest new features with the Medit Link and the iScan software from the Medit company. Prior to this version, we used to have to scan in one folder and then export the models into another folder and design restorations there. Here we're going to go ahead and in the scan catalog box designate the tooth we're going to work on, the type of restoration, and the type of material we're going to be using, and then we can launch the scan window. And then once that's done and the models are calculated, we can click on the CAD window, and from there we can start designing. So now that we've launched the scan window, we're going to go ahead and capture the upper jaw. So this is a upper first molar. It's a cracked tooth. The patient is symptomatic, and I have to take some pictures with the HD camera. And I'm going to actually even try and take a picture here with the light transilluminating across it, just to try and showcase for documentation purposes how the light doesn't transmit across to the buccal cusp. But the patient's symptomatic anyway. We've diagnosed a cracked tooth, and we like to take images of that to document it. So now I'm going to go ahead and scan the upper arch. And I'm deliberately going very slow just so you can see how easy the process is. I've got the area isolated with the isolite and the Optrogate. Very easy access. This is right after the patient was anesthetized. I even had the patient bite down articulating paper before I image this, just so I can keep track of the bites and make sure that the patient didn't move while I was trying to capture that. So that was the pre-op window. And now we'll move on to the prep window. This is the arch window, technically. This is where the preparation is going to go. And we're going to use our trim tool. And we're going to cut out exactly what we're going to be preparing and imaging after the preparation is done. So we're setting the stage for the prep to go into that area that was just cut out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and image the opposing. Again, the patient's getting numb, and really technically for chairside CAD CAM dentistry, same visit restorations, I don't really need to capture the lingual of the opposing. I just need to capture the occlusal surfaces and the buccal surfaces, because it's immaterial to the restoration. We don't need to know the position, the shape, or the contours of the linguals of the opposing, because we're not going to make contact with that. So now we'll proceed back to the prep area where we have the area that's cut out, and by now the patient is anesthetized, and we're going to go ahead and pause, and now I'm taking some scans of or some photos of the preparations. The first thing I like to do is get my occlusal reduction burrs, and this lets me, or allows me, affords me the luxury of knowing that I've prepared or reduced enough. So I use the router burr. Here's the shape of it to try and take a picture of it with the camera. With that burr, I can reduce the occlusal surface by 1.5, 2 millimeters, whichever size I use. From there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change to the disc burr. And this flat disc burr will let me flatten the cuss tips, and once I've got the occlusal reduction done, that's the most critical part. Then that gives me easy access to the interproximal. It gives me easy access to the areas that are toughest to prep, which is to break the contact. So right after I follow the router burr with the flat disc, I've reduced the cuss, and I've got the clearance that I need to readily and easily access the contact area. So there's a shape of the flat disc. Take a picture of that. And we'll proceed with the modification of the preparation. So next we'll reduce the facial walls, the interproximal, and then ultimately now we've got the almost the final prep here. You can clearly see the crack line that extends from the mesial to the distal, right across the occlusal surface. Now, the clinical decision was made to actually place a restoration on this tooth and give it a fighting chance and see how the patient responds. So it's great to document that crack for the patient. We have no idea how he's going to respond over time.
Except for Michael,
it's a worthwhile effort to restore this tooth permanently, give it a good fighting chance to retain its vitality and maintain its function in patients now. So now that I've checked that, or I've imaged I've taken the picture of the preparation, what I can do, what I prefer to do, is to also capture the bite here. So I've not finished the preparation. I haven't displaced the tissue yet. I haven't packed any cord yet, but I am verifying the clearance that I have. So here I ask the patient to bite down and move his tongue so I can verify that I've got the clearance. And again, I have not captured the final preps yet. I'm going to go ahead and capture the bite, even though my preparation isn't captured. I've got the clearance that I need. I'm going to use the adjacent teeth to mount the upper jaw to the lower jaw before I capture the final preparation. So this lets me, or allows me to save quite a bit of time. We'll go back towards the upper arch jaw. And now I'm ready to image the preparation itself. So we'll displace the tissue with cord. We've got some expaseal also placed on the tissue to get some hemostasis. Take some photos of the preparation itself. And now we're going to go ahead and image. And here's the beauty of digital dentistry. So I've reversed the sequence of what I would have done with analog dentistry. I took the prep impression last, and I've captured the opposing. I've captured the bites. I just captured the contact area very readily. There's no distortion, and it's going to be very easy to design this restoration, have it milled, and try it in when I can capture everything very accurately. So the very last thing I did is capture the preparation itself. The bite was done before the prep, and the opposing was captured before the prep as well. And we'll process the case and launch the CAD software. In this video, we're trying to fit the restoration. So this is amber mill. It's a transparent material once it's milled. So I'm checking the contacts. It's much easier to make any adjustments at this stage of the process as opposed to after it's been crystallized. So here it is. It's not fully seated. I'm going to displace it a little bit and then document the insertion of the restoration. You can see how flush it is to the preparation margin, or the margin of the preparation. So here, once I place enough finger pressure on the crown, it fits perfectly flush to the edge of the preparation. So perfect fit, perfect contacts, great contours that may make the pre-op, and it's going to make the delivery very easy. And there's a sprue that we're going to detach and crystallize. This 2-unit case by Cadre. We're going to demonstrate how we approach a case. We got the lower left molar and the lower left second premolar that need crown restorations. And we've got the scanner ready to go, and we're going to capture the opposing. Here we're featuring the software version 2.3 for Medit that has some cool new features. One of the features is to use a filter that will block out any colors you don't want in the equation. And you have a feature for highly reflective surfaces like metal that I just turned on. So with that feature turned on, here we're capturing a second molar that's a PFM with metal occlusal surfaces. In fact, some of the teeth mesial to the area we're going to be working in also have metal surface. So it's very easy to pick that up. We're also using our glove here that's purple in color to help retract the lips, and we're demonstrating how easy it is to image metal restorations with this feature. You do have to hit it from different angles to be able to pick up the highly reflective surfaces. Then we move to the lower jaw, and I'm not imaging the prep here just yet. So for the first molar, patients lost the crown. The second molar has a PFM. There's some recurrent decay on that second molar. So I'm imaging that. The second premolar is pretty worn down and warrants custable coverage. And again, I'm using the tip of the camera and my blue gloved finger to displace the lip and the tongue so that I can capture this lower arch as quickly as possible without picking up too much artifact like the lip. So I'm unassisted here. I've got no retraction, I've got no suction, no air, no help by the assistant. Very easy to manage that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and trim these two teeth that are going to be prepared. So what I'm trying to do is save time while the anesthesia is taking effect. I'm going to use the trim tool, and I'm going to remove the molar and the second premolar from the equation, and then I'm going to move to the bite. Okay, so those two teeth are going to be prepped, modified, refined, and now I'm going to have the patient bite down, and notice how with the buccal bite, or the alignment of the upper arch to the lower arch, I start very mesial in that equation. I'm starting by the lateral, the canine, and the upper jaw related to the bite very readily and easily. But if you'll notice, I've got the lower premolar and the first molar cropped out of the equation in that lower arch. This is more for our advanced users, but it's no big deal because we're going to use an advanced technique where we're going to hide the upper teeth. We're going to have the patient open their mouth, and then we're going to roll over to the buccal and even the occlusal surface of those teeth. And now we've incorporated a lot more data. This deep overbite was hiding that tooth structure. So with this advanced technique, we're able to capture the bite in this situation where the upper jaw was hiding the lower jaw. So now the stage is set for the modification of the preps and the imaging of the two refined preparations. So we'll turn the camera on and we'll engage the area mesial to the preparation, and of course getting good retraction and getting good hemostasis is really important. And now we start imaging the first premolar and the first molar. We've got hemostasis in most of the area. I just packed some cord on the mesial, the first premolar, and the distal, that second molar. We've displaced the tissue, and now I'm trying to capture the mesial of that second molar. I'll crank up my focal length here so that I have more distance to cover, and I can pick up the data below the height of contour of that second molar and fill in the information if you wanted to. So now I've picked up all the data that I need to launch the CAD software and design this and mill these two restorations and seat them in the same appointment. So while the scan is being processed, you can go ahead and go to the CAD tab, and here you can further define what type of restoration you're doing, what kind of milling machine you're using. It's a lot of detail here that we cover in subsequent videos. We have parameter setting for the fit of your restoration. You can choose the number of the access to the milling units, the materials, a lot of detail, a lot of options in the CAD tab, which gives you a lot of flexibility to design and mill any restoration you want. So once we click the CAD button, we instantly import the upper jaw and lower jaw and the opposing, and we can start placing margins, and we can readily find the margin areas is blown up 50-fold. That's called a crown bottom. We'll delineate where the margins are and get our proposal and line it up in the arch form to have it to fit to form and function. We have paths to draw for each one of these restorations, and here are the proposals, and both of those are milled and delivered in the same visit.